Hey guys, and welcome to Spotlight. Today we have an exciting guest, Samuel, who came all the way from Israel. Well, he's still there now. Hi, Samuel. How's it going?
How are you, Sydney? Nice to be
I'm
on the
doing
show.
I'm doing good. So we met online a few weeks ago, and we've been doing some deal sharing and been keeping in touch as well as talking about the latest trends in investing. And I know that Samuel has great knowledge and experience that would shed a great light into the new worlds of investing. So super excited to have him on the show.
Thank you, Sydney.
So, Samuel, I know that you have come from a long line of businessmen and entrepreneurs and investors in your family. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your general investing philosophy?
Yeah, so I do come not from the high-tech world, but from a long line of real estate and skilled nursing and actually hoteliers, a line of investors and operators in that space. And about 2 or 3 years ago, a close friend of mine introduced me to the world of venture capital investing, and I've taken a liking towards that sector and that vertical. So I've been doing this for the last 2 or 3 years, looking for interesting high-tech companies, both in Israel and obviously in Silicon Valley and on the East Coast in the United States. I've yet to venture into Europe or the Far East, but who knows where my journey will take me.
Perfect. Well, that is a great intro and a great background for everyone to know. So I wanted to ask you, Samuel, I know that you've had the chance to work with people from all geographies and ethnic backgrounds. So what are the biggest kind of misconceptions that others may have when working with you?
So it's a great question, Sydney, and it's very interesting. I think it really depends on the region that I'm working in. In Israel, generally speaking, an Orthodox Jew is looked at as a little bit less worldly, more, you might call it more like a Neanderthal, so to speak. So the initial reaction with people who I work with in Israel, when I present myself, an Orthodox Jew within a background in academia, they're a little bit skeptical, and it takes them a little bit more time to warm up. However, they generally tend to see that an American, or in my case, a Canadian Orthodox Jew, is a lot more worldly than the typical Orthodox Jew they'll meet in Israel, and has more business experience in general. So generally, that's a very low hurdle to clear.
That is good, and thank you for clearing up, the different levels of misconceptions based on geography and people's background. Because at the end of the day, of course, the world isn't the way that it is; it's the way that we are.
100%.
So I'd love to ask you actually what you would describe as kind of the post-COVID-19 world. As you know, we're all going through similar kinds of stress and changes together all around the world. But what do you see happening on the other side? How are you feeling about this?
Again, a great question, and it's the hot topic now. Everyone's playing guru and prophet as to what could be. I can only give you my thoughts the way I see it. I see a very, very overvalued and overpriced public equities market. We have companies like Tesla, which Elon Musk, I think 2 or 3 days ago, overtook Warren Buffett on the list of the world's richest men in the world. So you have somebody who's built, for 70 years, tremendous wealth and a tremendous portfolio, and you have a guy who has a business. All respect to Elon Musk, they call him a visionary, but he doesn't have a business that makes money. So I see a overvalued public equity market, which I think is going, at some point, will probably crash. The bubble will burst. And that's on the public equity side. I see the venture capital side, and I'm seeing it now. I have a lot more inbound deal flow, both in the secondary market and in startups trying to raise money. There's there's a stranglehold in the high tech world. Definitely in want to haves and not need to haves. So want to haves are good in a bull market. Need to haves are what survives in a bear market.
I especially love your nice to have versus must haves. And we're definitely seeing a lot of that in the private sector as well as the public sector for sure, especially for things like travel and the way people are seeing it. Do I need to have this, or how can I change this? There was a company that just went from, hey, I'm going to do travel and tourism into, hey, we're going to do more focus on stay at homes and do it yourselves. and exploring your own local neighborhoods and your own local country and things like that too, in order to survive because of this new pandemic. So these are great things that you've definitely picked up on. I know that you are also someone who is very close with your family, and I myself am not someone who normally works with family. I don't have experience in that. But what are your experiences when you have overlap with business and family?
So I'll tell you anecdotally, there's a famous Jewish spiritual leader who was once asked about doing business with family. And his response was, with family, you eat cake. So in other words, family is, his position was, you don't mix business with family. Family, you have nice dinners with, you eat cake with them, but you don't do business with them. Because generally speaking, and I understand where he's coming from, I've seen it enough times, not thank God in my own family, but in other people's families, it doesn't always end so well, especially if the investment goes south or there's accounting issues, let's call them. So generally speaking, people like to shy away from family. In terms of my own family, thank God I was blessed with an investment savvy family, and be an understanding family where I get along with them. So my family actually is very instrumental in opening up my own network and introducing me to people who normally I would not have had access to. And generally speaking, I won't, as a rule of thumb, I won't solicit an investment directly from a family member, but if they know what I'm doing and I'm reaching out to them in order to get a hold of one of their contacts, generally speaking, they get interested. And then on their own volition, I'm happy to include them. I'll tell you what, on this point, I'll add one thing. There's famous a Talmudic verse that's said over many times amongst Jewish people. There are three crowns that God gives people. There's a crown of a king. There's a crown of Torah, our spiritual learning, and then there's the crown of a good name. And the Talmud relates, the crown of a good name trumps all the rest of the crowns. So I generally the most important thing for me, especially with family and friends, is to keep the crown of a good name. And the way I do it, acting with complete integrity with my family and my friends, and obviously everybody else around me, is the way I ensure that.
Great. I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. And it allows us to kind of understand, where your values lie and more about who you are. So I think that's a wonderful thing to share.
Thank you.
So my last question for you is just so then, when our startups, either Venturx startups or anyone who are seeing this video want to reach out to you, what sectors would you usually not invest in? So then we have a general idea.
Phenomenal question. So this is actually something, and I'd like to add that when I started out in this sector, in the PE and the VC sector, so one of my closest friends and mentors, business mentors, told me something, an amazing thought before I started looking at different companies. He divided the world of businesses into three categories. He says there are categories of businesses which are built to help people. And those are great if, and that's a big if. He said, there was something he said before this. He said, there are two types of things. There are businesses and ideas. Businesses are companies that make money, and ideas that are companies that do not make money. So we're talking about businesses. So there are three types of businesses. There are businesses that help people and help the world. And those are the businesses, if you find them, something like that makes money, those are the businesses you want to be in. Then there are businesses that are, so to speak, platonic. They're in Yiddish, they say they're parv. They're not helping, but they're not destroying. You have a car company. You have, refrigerator. You can't tell me that refrigerators help the world, but there are a million refrigerators. But if it's a good refrigerator company that makes money, great. That's fine. Nothing wrong with investing with that. But then there's a third category of companies that destroy the world, destroy people, destroy families, and destroy the world. And those businesses you need to stay away from. Why? Because as I'm a person who believes in God, and as an Orthodox Jew, we also believe that God determines how much money. At the beginning of the Jewish New Year, we have passed down generation to generation. God decides how much money you're going to make that year. So it's all about what we have to choose is how we want to make that money. God gives us that choice. Do you want to make it in a kosher, fine, upstanding way? Or do you want to make it in something that's dubious, that's illegal, that's criminal? that's not going to help the world. So he told me those companies you got to stay away from.
Those are some great tips and great advice for any startup as well as investors, any new investors that are looking to get into the game as well. So thank you so much for the interview. And now we're going to play a little game just to get to know you some more. On your 2 pieces of paper, we're going to play a game called Truth and Lie, which means that you're going to write one thing on a piece of paper that's true and one thing that is a lie. You don't get to tell me which one it is. I'm going to try and guess.
Okay.
So here is the first one. I started Venturx in 2017. You cannot look this up, by the way. And then the next one is I learn a new recipe every week. So which one do you think is true and which one do you think is a lie?
Okay. So it's a tough one. Sydney, you're putting me on the spot here. I'm going to go with I started Venturx in 2017 is true.
Think this one is true?
Yeah, and I'm going to learn a new recipe every week. My feeling is that you're a bit of a social butterfly. You like to go out to eat more often than you like to cook at home. So I'm going to say that's going to be the false one.
You're wrong.
Wow.
So I started Venturx, a fundraising platform, in 2016. And I do learn a new recipe every week. So you're right, I am very social, but here's the trick. I invite friends over. So then I have the chance to get them to try with me as well. Yes. I have visited Saudi Arabia. I flew together with Stephen Harper to Israel. Our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper?
Got it.
You have strangely a lot of connections in Canada, my friend. Okay, so hold both of them up so I can just have a visual once again. I visited Saudi Arabia and I flew together with Stephen Harper to Israel. So I do know that you have quite a lot of connections in Canada, including family here, because for some reason you just have the biggest family in the world. And then visiting Saudi Arabia, I'm gonna guess you have to like hitchhike there. And so I think you flew together with Stephen Harper to Israel.
So that's true, you're saying?
Yay!
You got it.
Awesome.
But there's a backstory. I actually didn't know I was sitting right next to him until after the flight.
Really?
Because I had never met him in person.
You sat right next to him?
Right next to him.
Nice. What did you guys talk at some point when you figured out who he was?
Not much. I was actually totally asleep for most of the flight. So it's a night flight, and I was exhausted. It was a very long 48 hours from San Francisco to LA to Toronto to Buffalo, New York, and then back to Israel. So it was a bit of a grueling trip.
Wow. So thank you so much for playing our game. And now, Samuel, I would love for you to share something that you're excited about, whether it be a startup that you're working with or charity project or any kind of initiative that you'd like to share with our audience. Okay.
So the one thing I'm very excited about, I'm working together. Probably my biggest involvement in my portfolio companies is a data storage company based out of Israel. Its business headquarters are in New York, but its tech headquarters are in Israel. It's a company called Store One. It's an extremely disruptive data storage software company, which just signed a very large partnership deal with Intel about 10 days ago. And it's something that's going to revolutionize data storage as we know it in terms of storage recall, and then just in terms of raw capacity, in terms of the code and the software running these data centers. This company has basically rewritten data storage software from scratch, and we're dealing with some of the big players now, thank God, in Silicon Valley. We have Intel now as a great partner of ours, and very excited about how it's really going to change the world, both from a business data storage standpoint and also from an energy footprint.
So we're gonna link the description below with Samuel's contact if you guys want to reach out and ask him more things. So thank you so much for taking the time to join our show. It was really great to have you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. You're always a pleasure to speak to, and I look forward to keeping up with you in the future.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Have a great day.